Well, people have always been fascinated with heaven. They've sought to describe what it looks like, smells like, feels like, and probably most importantly, who is there. And every once in a while, it becomes popular for people to write books about heaven and their experiences of heaven. Most recently, the book Heaven is for Real came out. It documents a young boy's memory of a visit to heaven. It debuted at number 3 on the bestseller list. It has sold millions and millions of copies. It has actually been so successful that Sony Pictures is now running an open casting call for a film adaptation of that book. And it sparked follow-up books. There's a new book called To Heaven and Back. There's one called 23 Minutes in Hell, I guess documenting somebody's visit there. The newest book on the market is called Proof of Heaven, and it is a story of a neurosurgeon who caught a rare bacteria and slipped into a coma, and then he writes how in that state he, quote, journeyed to another dimension of the universe. All about his experience. Whether we're religious or not, whether you're an avid churchgoer or not, the popularity of these books suggests that people are intrigued with the afterlife, and particularly heaven. Because let's be honest, nobody really cares about what hell is like. We just don't want to go. In the context of our faith, there's probably no better resource for this topic than the book of Revelation, which is John's vision into the heavenly realms. The passage we read today is about the final establishment of God's kingdom, what the rule of God in heaven and earth looks like when everything's said and done, when sin and evil and the devil, when they're all wiped out and God can establish his rule and dominion over all things for all time. If we're interested in what heaven's like, this passage that we read today declares to us some of the essential elements. And so I invite you to pick up your Bibles and turn to the book of Revelation. Revelation is in the New Testament. It's the last book of the Bible. So go to the end. If you hit a map, you've gone too far and you just need to go a little bit closer. And if you haven't read Revelation for a while, I encourage you to do so. Revelation is a fabulous book. And contrary to popular belief, the book of Revelation is not a book about hellfire and damnation and judgment and wrath. The theme of the book of Revelation is all about the love of God and the salvation that Jesus brings. It's really a book of grace and mercy and forgiveness. But if you read it, you really kind of just need to sit down and hunker down for maybe an hour and just read it as a chunk, because then you really get the full picture of what's happening. Now, obviously, it's a vision. It's a vision that John has into the heavenly realms, and so it's very image-laden. John is attempting to describe indescribable things. He's trying to use finite language and finite terminology to describe something that's infinite. And so language is always going to fail at some point. John talks about crystals and golden streets and foundations of jasper and emerald and sapphire. The point of all that isn't to get a blueprint of heaven, not to try to map it out. You know, here's Starbucks, here's the movie theater. It's not what that. Some people have tried to map out heaven based on what Revelation says. It's not the point. All those images, they're symbolic about, the majesty, the brilliance, the purity, the royalty of heaven. And a lot of those symbols, a lot of those images, harken back to Old Testament promises and prophecies. For example, our reading begins with verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. Isaiah 65, verse 17, says, Behold, I will create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. What John is seeing is that God is bringing about the fulfillment of all his promises that he made throughout the scriptures. And in both the passages in Isaiah, but also in the Revelation, when it talks about the new heaven and the new earth, the word new doesn't mean original. It doesn't mean new in time or space, something that wasn't there and now just pops into existence. The word new means kind of a refreshing, a new dynamic, a new quality, a new power. What God promises through Isaiah and what John affirms in his revelation is that God renews the earth, that the full power of God's kingdom is able to be exercised throughout the entire cosmos because the forces of sin, death, and the devil have finally been thwarted. When John writes that there's no longer any sea, it doesn't mean a lake. It doesn't mean a body of water. In the Bible, water is often seen as an image of chaos, destruction, and torment. Revelation chapter 13, it talks about how the force of evil comes bubbling up from a sea, from a lake. So when John writes, there's no longer any sea, what he's writing is that there is no longer any source for which evil or torment or destruction can come bubbling forth and start infecting people and the world around. All of that has come to an end. They are finally thwarted through the full power of God's kingdom as it emerges throughout all time and in all places. It's really a brilliant image. God's rule and God's dominion kind of explodes on the scene. John writes, I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, come down out of heaven. Jerusalem in the Old Testament was seen as the footstool of God. It was where God dwelt, where God resided. And one of the most fabulous things that we see here is that God's dwelling place descends to his people. So often when we talk about heaven, we talk about getting there. There was a story of a preacher talking to the kids about heaven and said, let me ask you a question. Can we use an airplane to get to heaven? And the kid said, no. He said, can we use a train to get to heaven? The kid said, no. Can we use a boat to get to heaven? The kid said, no. So the priest asked, well, how do we get to heaven? And some, bright little boy put up his hand and said, you gotta die first. So often that's what we think about heaven. It's the place that we go to afterwards. Yet what we hear here, that heaven, the kingdom of God, the dwelling place of God, comes to his people, descends. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. We often read that passage in funerals, usually alongside John 14, where Jesus says, in my Father's house are many mansions, and I have gone to prepare a place for you. Here's the same sentiment. Everything that the kingdom of God is prepared specifically for you, and it's gifted to you. As much as we talk about gates and St. Peter and getting there, what we see is that heaven is a gift. It's a gift symbolizing God's love and God's desire for you, to be with you, just like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. Because in the end, heaven is not about golden streets and pearly gates. It's about God and God's presence. Verse 3, and I heard a loud voice from the throne, from the very root of God's power and God's authority over everything that exists. He bellows out a declaration for all times and all places. Now the dwelling of God is with people, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God.